Kang Tae-ho checked the address on his tablet for the third time. The numbers matched, but his brain refused to accept it. The package in his hands was small, wrapped in black velvet, and worth more than everything he would earn in 10 years. His job was simple. Deliver it to Docking Bay 7 on the Velvet Moon Station, hand it to the contact, and leave. No talking, no looking around, no trouble. But trouble had a way of finding Tae-ho. The Velvet Moon was the most expensive orbital station in the galaxy. It floated above a dead planet like a jewel in the darkness. Only the richest and most powerful beings could afford to breathe its air. Today, it hosted a wedding between two ancient vampire houses. Tae-ho had heard stories about vampires his whole life. They were beautiful, immortal, and dangerous. They ruled 12 star systems and viewed humans as little more than servants, or worse, food. His ship docked with a soft hum. Tae-ho grabbed the package and walked through the airlock. The corridor beyond was made of white marble and gold. Soft music played from somewhere far away. He could smell flowers he had never seen before. "Just find Base 7, he whispered to himself. "Drop the package. Go home." He walked quickly, keeping his head down. His delivery uniform was plain gray, the mark of a worker. No one would notice him. No one would care. But the station was a maze. Every corridor looked the same. The music grew louder, and Tae-ho realized he had taken a wrong turn. He stood before two massive doors made of dark red wood. They were open just a crack, and golden light spilled through. He should have turned back. He knew this. But curiosity pulled at him like gravity. He stepped closer and looked through the gap. The ballroom beyond was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Crystal chandeliers hung from a ceiling, painted with stars. Hundreds of guests stood in perfect rows wearing clothes that cost more than starships. Their skin was pale, their eyes sharp, and their movements too smooth to be human. Vampires. All of them. At the far end of the room, two figures stood before an altar. A bride in white and a groom in black. They held hands while an old vampire in golden robes spoke words Tae-ho could not hear. He needed to leave. Now. Tae-ho stepped back, but his foot caught on something. He stumbled and his shoulder hit the door. The door swung open with a loud creak that echoed through the silent ballroom. Every vampire turned to look at him. Tae-ho's heart stopped. He stood frozen in the doorway, the package clutched to his chest, his face burning with fear and shame. The old vampire at the altar stopped speaking. The bride's eyes narrowed. The groom's lip curled in disgust. "A human," someone whispered, "at a royal wedding? How did it get in here? Security has failed us." Tae-ho opened his mouth to apologize, to explain, to beg for his life. But before he could speak, someone grabbed his wrist. He turned and saw her. She was young, or at least she looked young. Her hair was long and black, falling past her shoulders like a river of ink. Her skin was pale as moonlight, and her eyes were red, deep and ancient. She wore a dress of dark crimson that moved like liquid when she walked. A thin silver crown rested on her head. She was the most beautiful person Tae-ho had ever seen. She was also clearly royal. "Dance with me," she said. Her voice was soft but firm. It was not a request. What?" Tae-ho stammered. "The first waltz is about to begin." She pulled him forward, her grip surprisingly strong. "You will be my partner." "My lady, I am just a delivery." "I know what you are." Her red eyes met his, and something flickered in them. Amusement, interest. He could not tell. "That is why I chose you." The music changed. A slow, elegant melody filled the room. The bride and groom began to dance, and other couples joined them. The vampire princess, for she could be nothing else, placed Tae-ho's hand on her waist and took his other hand in hers. "I do not know how to dance," Tae-ho whispered desperately. "Then follow my lead." She moved, and somehow, his body moved with her. They glided across the floor like shadows. Tae-ho was aware of every eye in the room watching them. He heard gasps, whispers, and angry murmurs. A human dancing with vampire royalty. It was unthinkable. It was an insult. It was madness. But the princess smiled, and for a moment, Tae-ho forgot to be afraid. "You are trembling," she observed. "I am terrified," he admitted. "Good. Fear keeps you alive. She tilted her head, studying him like a scientist studying a strange insect. But you did not run. Interesting. You are holding my hand. Running seemed difficult. She laughed. It was a small sound, quickly hidden, but real. You have humor. I did not expect that from a human. We are full of surprises. The dance continued. Taeho felt like he was dreaming. The package was still pressed between them, awkward and forgotten. The other vampires had stopped dancing to watch. Some looked furious. Others looked hungry. A tall vampire with silver hair pushed through the crowd. His eyes were colder than space itself. Yuna, he said, his voice sharp as a blade. What is the meaning of this? The princess, Yuna, did not stop dancing. I am enjoying the waltz, brother. Is that not allowed? With a human? Have you lost your mind? Perhaps. She spun Taeho around, placing herself between him and the angry vampire. Or perhaps I have finally found it. The music ended. Yuna released Taeho's hand and stepped back. The warmth of her touch faded, replaced by cold reality. Go, she said quietly. Base 7 is down the east corridor. Third left, second right. Your contact is waiting. Taeho stared at her. How did you know? I know many things. Her red eyes softened, just for a moment. Run, little human, before my brother decides to make an example of you. Taeho did not need to be told twice. He clutched his package and ran. Behind him he heard shouting, arguments, and the princess's calm voice cutting through the chaos. He did not stop until he reached Base 7. He delivered the package with shaking hands, answered no questions, and returned to his ship. As the velvet moon shrank in his rear window, Taeho finally allowed himself to breathe. He was alive. He had danced with a vampire princess and survived. But deep in his chest, where his heart still pounded like a drum, he knew something had changed. The way she looked at him, the way she smiled, the way she said his species' name, like it was a secret only she understood. This was not over. Taeho was certain he would see Lady Yuna again. He was not sure if that thought terrified him or thrilled him. Perhaps both. Park Jina was waiting for him when his ship docked at the Starline Express hub. Her arms were crossed and her foot was tapping against the metal floor. This was never a good sign. You danced with a vampire, she said before Taeho could even open his mouth. At a royal wedding, with a princess. Taeho walked past her toward the locker room. News travels fast. News! Taeho, you're on the galactic feeds. Someone recorded you. The video has been seen by 3 billion people in the last hour. Gina followed him, her voice rising. 3 billion. Do you understand what you have done? I delivered a package. You made yourself the most famous human in vampire space. Gina grabbed his shoulder and spun him around. Her eyes were wide with worry. The vampire houses are demanding your name. Some want you dead. Others want to know how you got into the wedding. And the princess, Taeho, she is the daughter of the Crimson Emperor. She is practically untouchable. Taeho leaned against his locker and closed his eyes. His body was tired, but his mind could not stop racing. He kept seeing Yuna's face, her red eyes, her small hidden smile. She grabbed my hand, he said quietly. What was I supposed to do? Say no to a vampire princess in front of her entire court? Gina sighed. She was his oldest friend. They had grown up together on the same small colony. Both orphans, both survivors. She knew him better than anyone. You are an idiot, she said, but her voice was softer now. A brave idiot, but still an idiot. I know. What did she want? Why did she choose you? Taeho shook his head. I do not know. She just looked at me, like she saw something no one else could see. Before Gina could respond, the locker room door opened. 4 figures walked in, and the temperature seemed to drop by 10 degrees. They were vampires, royal guards judging by their black armor and the crimson crest on their chests. Their leader was a woman with short white hair and eyes like frozen silver. She looked at Taeho the way a wolf looks at a rabbit. Kang Taeho, she said. It was not a question. Gina stepped in front of him. He has done nothing wrong. The wedding security failed, not him. He was just making a delivery. The guard ignored her. Lady Yuna requests your presence. You will come with us. And if he refuses, Gina demanded. The guard smiled. It was not a friendly smile. The invitation is not optional. Teho put a hand on Gina's shoulder. It is okay. I will go. Teho! If they wanted to kill me, they would have done it already. He tried to sound confident, but his voice shook slightly. Just wait for me. If I do not return by morning, contact the human embassy. Gina's face was pale, but she nodded. Do not do anything stupid. I will try. The guards led him through the station to a private docking bay. A ship waited there, sleek and black, shaped like a blade. Teho had never seen anything so beautiful or so deadly. The journey to the Velvet Moon took less than an hour. Teho spent the time in silence, watching the stars pass by and trying to control his fear. When the ship docked, the guards escorted him through corridors he had not seen before. These halls were older, darker, and decorated with paintings of battles and blood. Finally, they stopped before a door made of black glass. The guards stepped aside and the door opened on its own. Enter, a familiar voice called. Teho walked inside. The room was a private chamber, larger than his entire apartment. Candles floated in the air, casting soft golden light. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. A massive window showed the stars outside, bright and endless. Yuna stood by the window, still wearing her crimson dress. She turned as he entered, and her red eyes studied him with that same strange intensity. You came, she said. Your guards were very convincing. She almost smiled. They can be. Please sit. Teho remained standing. With respect, my lady, I would like to know why I am here. If I have offended your house, I apologize. The dance was not my intention. I was simply lost, and you... I know. She walked toward him slowly, like a predator circling its prey. I chose you, Teho. The question is why. I have been wondering the same thing. Yuna stopped an arm's length away. She was shorter than him, but her presence made her seem larger. When I touched your hand, I felt something. When we danced, I smelled something. Something in your blood. Teho tensed. I am not here to be food. I do not want to eat you. Her voice was patient, almost amused. I want to understand you. Your blood carries a scent that should not exist. It is like starlight and fire. It is ancient, older than my empire, older than my species. I have read about this scent in books that are 10,000 years old. She reached out and touched his cheek. Her fingers were cold, but gentle. You are soul-born, she whispered. Teho frowned. I do not know what that means. Neither did I until I met you. Yuna withdrew her hand and walked to a bookshelf. She pulled out a thick volume bound in red leather. The pages were yellow with age. Long ago, before the Crimson Dominion rose, there were humans who carried the light of dying stars in their veins. They were called soul-born. Their blood was poison to vampires. One drop could burn us like acid. But it was also the only cure for a disease that nearly destroyed us. She opened the book and showed him a page. The illustration showed a human figure surrounded by golden light, facing a creature of shadow and fangs. The soul-born were hunted, Yuna continued. My ancestors led the hunt. They believed that destroying the soul-born would protect our kind forever. They were wrong. Wrong how? Yuna looked at him, and for the first time Teho saw fear in her ancient eyes. The disease they feared has returned. We call it the Hollow Plague. It is spreading through the Dominion, killing thousands. There is no cure except the blood of the soul-born. She closed the book. Blood that everyone believed no longer existed, until you walked into that ballroom. Teho's mind was spinning. I am just a delivery man. I grew up on a farming colony. My parents died when I was young. I have no special powers, no ancient heritage. You have made a mistake. I do not make mistakes. Yuna stepped closer. Your colony was founded 300 years ago by refugees from the inner systems. They were running from persecution, from hunters who wanted them dead. They hid their history, changed their names, and pretended to be ordinary. She placed her hand on his chest over his heart. But the blood remembers, Teho, even if you do not. Teho stared at her. His whole life he had been nobody, an orphan, a worker, a face in the crowd. Now this vampire princess was telling him he was the last of a legendary bloodline. What do you want from me? he asked. Yuna's eyes softened. I do not want to hurt you. I do not want to use you. But there are others who will. When word spreads about what you are, and it will spread, you will become the most hunted man in the galaxy. So why tell me? Why not just take my blood and be done with it? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that Tai Ho would never forget. Because I am tired of being a monster, and you are the first person in 300 years who looked at me like I was something else. Outside the window, the stars burned in the darkness. Taeho did not know what the future held. He did not know if he could trust this vampire princess or if he was walking into a trap. But he knew one thing for certain. His life as a simple delivery man was over. Something far more dangerous had begun. The library was the oldest room on the Velvet Moon. Its walls were carved from stone brought from the vampire homeworld thousands of years ago. The books inside were older still, written in languages that most species had forgotten. Taiho sat at a long table while Yuna spread ancient documents before him. This is impossible, he said for the 5th time, and yet here you are. Yuna pointed to a faded map. This shows the migration routes of soul-born refugees after the Great Hunt. See this line? It ends at the outer rim, in a region that was considered worthless at the time. Too far from trade routes, too cold, too empty. My colony is in that region. Exactly. She pulled out another document, this one covered in handwritten notes. The refugees changed everything about themselves. New names, new histories, new identities. They mixed with regular human colonists and pretended to be ordinary. Within 3 generations, most of their descendants had forgotten the truth. Taiho stared at the old paper. The handwriting was small and careful. Someone had written dates, names, and locations with desperate precision. These were the records of people running for their lives. My grandmother used to tell me stories, he said slowly. I thought they were just fairy tales. She talked about people who could hold sunlight in their hands. People who were not afraid of the dark. Those were not fairy tales. Yuna sat across from him. They were memories, passed down through generations, disguised as children's stories to keep them alive. But I cannot hold sunlight. I have never done anything special in my life. The power is dormant. It sleeps in your blood, waiting to be awakened. Yuna's red eyes were serious. The soul-born did not discover their abilities until they needed them, until they faced true danger. Taeho laughed bitterly. You mean I need to almost die before I can do magic? It is not magic, it is biology. Your cells carry genetic markers that allow them to absorb and store stellar radiation. Under extreme stress, these cells can release that energy. She paused. The process is painful and dangerous. Many soul-born died learning to control it. That is very comforting. The door to the library opened and the temperature dropped again. Taeho turned and saw the silver-haired vampire from the wedding. Yuna's brother. His face was cold with anger. Yuna, Lord Hyunwoo said, what is the human still doing here? We are talking, brother. I did not realize I needed your permission. Hyunwoo walked toward them, his boots echoing on the stone floor. He was taller than his sister, broader, with the look of a warrior, his eyes fixed on Tai-ho like targeting sensors. The council is asking questions. They want to know why you brought this creature to our station. They want to know why you danced with it at cousin Minji's wedding. It is not a creature, Yuna said calmly. His name is Kang Tai-ho, and he may be the key to curing the Hollow Plague. Hyunwoo stopped. For a moment something flickered in his cold eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by suspicion. The Soulborn are extinct. We made sure of that. We were wrong. Yuna stood and faced her brother. His blood carries the scent. I have confirmed it with 3 separate tests. He is genuine, Hyunwoo. The last of his kind. Hyunwoo looked at Taeho. His gaze was heavy, measuring, calculating. Taeho forced himself to meet it without flinching. If this is true, Hyunwoo said slowly, then he is too valuable to let walk free, and too dangerous to let live. He is a person, not a resource. He is a threat to our empire. Hyunwoo's voice hardened. If other houses learn about him, they will start a war to claim him. If the lower castes learn he can cure the plague, they will see him as a messiah and demand we share the cure with everyone. Either way, our power is at risk. Our power means nothing if our people are dying. Our people have been dying for centuries. A few thousand more will not matter. Tejo stood up. Both vampires turned to look at him. I have a question, he said. His voice was steady, though his hands were shaking under the table. Do I get any say in this? Or are you going to decide my fate without asking me? Hyunwoo smiled coldly. You are a human. Your opinions are irrelevant. I am a human whose blood can save your species. That seems pretty relevant to me. The room went silent. Hyunwoo's smile faded. His hand moved toward the blade at his hip. Yuna stepped between them. Enough. Brother, I will not let you harm him. You would defy me? For a human? I would defy anyone for what is right. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Tejo watched the two siblings stare at each other. He could see the history between them. Centuries of rivalry, resentment, and unspoken words. Finally, Hyunwoo stepped back. Very well, sister. Keep your pet human. Study him. Play your games. He turned toward the door. But know this. You cannot protect him forever. Sooner or later, someone will take what they want from him. I only hope you are not too attached when that happens. He left. The door closed behind him with a sound like a tomb ceiling. Yuna let out a breath. For a moment she looked tired, older than her young face suggested. I am sorry, she said. My brother is not evil. He is just afraid. Afraid of what? Change, weakness, losing control? She sat down heavily. Our father is dying, Tejo. The hollow plague has reached even the royal family. Hyunwoo will be emperor soon, and he knows he is not ready. Tejo sat back down across from her. You said the plague is spreading. How bad is it? Bad. The official numbers say 20,000 dead. The real numbers are closer to 200,000. Yuna's voice was quiet. The lower castes suffer the most. They do not have access to the treatments that slow the disease. They die in the streets while the nobles pretend everything is fine. And my blood can cure this? In theory, yes. The soul-born blood contains proteins that attack the plague at the cellular level. But extracting the cure would require extensive research, careful processing, and most importantly, your willing cooperation. Tejo was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his grandmother's stories. He thought about the refugees who had run across the galaxy to escape extinction. He thought about the 200,000 vampires dying from a disease that his ancestors might have prevented. What happens to me if I help? He asked. Yuna looked at him with something like surprise. You would consider it, after everything my kind has done to yours? Your ancestors hunted my ancestors. That is history. It is terrible, but it is history. Tejo leaned forward. Right now, people are dying. I might be able to help. If I walk away because of something that happened 1,000 years ago, what does that make me? Yuna stared at him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, a smile crossed her face. It was not the small, hidden smile from the ballroom. It was real, warm, and almost human. You are strange, she said. Your species is strange. Any vampire in your position would demand revenge, power, compensation. You ask what you can do to help. Maybe that is why we are still here. Humans, I mean. We are not the strongest or the smartest or the longest lived, but we help each other, even when it hurts, even when it is hard. Yuna reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was gentle. Then let me help you in return, she said. My brother will not stop trying to control you. Other houses will come for you when they learn the truth. You need to understand your powers before that happens. Can you teach me? I can try. She squeezed his hand. But I warn you, Tejo, the path ahead is dangerous. You may not survive it. Tejo thought about his small apartment, his boring job, his quiet life. He thought about Gina waiting for him, worried and afraid. He thought about the stars outside the window, vast and endless and full of secrets. I have been surviving my whole life, he said. I think I can handle a little more danger. Yuna laughed. It was a real laugh this time, bright and unexpected. You really are strange, she said. So I have been told. Outside, in the darkness of space, forces were already moving. News of the Soulborn had begun to spread through hidden channels and secret networks. Hunters sharpened their blades. Scientists prepared their laboratories. Rebels whispered of hope. And on a small space station, a human delivery man and a vampire princess began their unlikely alliance. Neither of them knew how much it would cost. Neither of them knew how much it would change everything. The attack came at midnight. Tai-Ho was sleeping in the guest quarters Yuna had arranged for him. One moment he was dreaming about his grandmother's farm. The next, an explosion shook the entire station. Alarms screamed. Red emergency lights flashed. He rolled out of bed and hit the floor just as the door burst open. Two figures in black rushed in, their faces hidden behind masks, their hands holding weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "Target acquired," one said into a communicator. "Moving to extract." Tai-Ho grabbed the only thing within reach, a metal lamp, and threw it. It hit the first attacker in the face, buying him half a second. He ran toward the window, not knowing what he would do when he reached it. Something hit him from behind. Pain exploded through his body. He fell, unable to move, his muscles locked by some kind of paralysis weapon. "Stupid human," the second attacker said, standing over him. "Did you think you could escape?" "That depends," a new voice said from the doorway. "Escape from whom?" Yuna stood in the entrance. She was still wearing her night clothes, but her eyes burned red with fury. Behind her, the hallway was filled with fallen bodies. The attackers raised their weapons, but they were too slow. Yuna moved like shadow and fire. In less than 2 seconds, both attackers were on the ground, their weapons broken, their arms bent at impossible angles. She knelt beside Tai-Ho and touched his chest. Warmth spread through him, and the paralysis faded. "Can you walk?" she asked. "I think so." He stood on shaky legs. "Who were they?" "House Kang Jin, minor nobles who want to sell you to the highest bidder." Yuna grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. "We need to leave, now." "What about your brother? Your family?" "My brother ordered this attack." Tai-Ho stopped. "What?" "He cannot officially kill you. That would cause scandal. So he leaked your location to House Kang Jin and let them do the dirty work." Yuna's voice was bitter. "I should have expected this. Hyunwoo has never let honor get in the way of convenience." They ran through the station. Bodies lay everywhere. Guards, servants, attackers. Tai-Ho tried not to look at them. The fighting had been brutal and one-sided. "Did you do all this?" he asked. "I am 300 years old. I have been trained in combat since I could walk." Yuna glanced at him. "Do not worry. They will heal. Vampires are difficult to kill permanently." They reached a private docking bay. A small ship waited there, sleek and fast. Gina was standing beside it, her face pale with fear. "Tai-Ho!" She ran toward him and grabbed his shoulders. "What is happening?" "Guards showed up at my door and told me to come here immediately. Then I heard explosions. I will explain later. Right now, we need to go." They boarded the ship. Yuna took the pilot's seat, her fingers flying across the controls. The engines roared to life, and they shot out of the docking bay into open space. Behind them, the velvet moon shrank into the distance. Ahead, the stars waited, cold and endless. "Where are we going?" Gina asked. "Somewhere safe." Yuna set a course and leaned back. "I have contacts in the outer systems, people who owe me favors. We can hide there while I figure out our next move." "Hide for how long?" Tai-Ho asked. "I do not know." For the first time, Yuna looked uncertain. "Word will spread fast. Every vampire house, every criminal organization, every scientist looking for fame, they will all want you. The bounty on your head will be astronomical." "Great." Tai-Ho slumped in his chair. "Yesterday I was worried about making my delivery quota. Today I am the most wanted man in the galaxy." "Welcome to my world." Yuna almost smiled. "Being royal means being hunted. You simply joined the club." The journey took 3 days. They jumped through multiple systems, changed course randomly, and used every trick Yuna knew to hide their trail. During the quiet hours, she taught Tai-Ho about his heritage. "The soul-born power comes from emotion," she explained one evening. "Fear, anger, love, desperation. These are the triggers. When your body believes it is in mortal danger, it releases the stored solar energy. So I need to be terrified to use my power?" or furious, or determined to protect someone you love. She looked at Gina, who was sleeping in the corner. The strongest soul-born were not warriors. They were parents, lovers, friends, people who had something precious to fight for. Tai-Ho thought about this. He had spent his whole life alone, or nearly alone. Gina was his only real friend. He had no family, no children, no lover. What did he have to fight for? I want to try, he said suddenly. Yuna raised an eyebrow. Now? Here? You said I need to learn before the enemy finds us. I cannot learn if I do not practice. She considered this, then nodded. Very well, hold out your hand. Tai-Ho extended his palm. Yuna reached over and placed her fingers on his skin. Her touch was cold but not unpleasant. Close your eyes, she said. Think of the sun, not the way it looks, but the way it feels. Warm, bright, powerful. Tai-Ho closed his eyes. He tried to imagine sunlight, but all he could think about was the darkness around them, the cold of space, the enemies hunting them. You are thinking about fear, Yuna said. That is useful, but fear alone creates uncontrolled bursts. Try thinking about something else, something worth protecting. He thought about Gina, his friend, his family, the only person who had stuck with him through everything. He thought about the morning coffee they shared, the jokes they told, the silent understanding between them. Something shifted in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. Good, Yuna whispered. Now push that feeling into your hand. Imagine it flowing through your blood like light through a fiber cable. Tai-Ho focused. The warmth grew, spreading from his chest down his arm. His hand began to tingle. He heard Gina gasp and opened his eyes. His palm was glowing. It was faint, barely brighter than a candle, but it was real. Golden light danced beneath his skin like liquid fire. He could feel it pulsing with his heartbeat. I did it, he breathed, a small step. But Yuna was smiling. With practice, you will be able to do much more. The glow faded, and Tai-Ho felt suddenly exhausted. But beneath the tiredness was something new. Hope. If he could learn to control this power, he would not be helpless anymore. He could fight back. That night, while the others slept, Yuna sat alone in the cockpit, watching the stars. Tai-Ho found her there, unable to sleep himself. Can I ask you something personal? He said. You may ask. I may not answer. Earlier, you said I was the first person in 300 years who looked at you differently. What did you mean? Yuna was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was soft. I am dying, Tai-Ho. The hollow plague. I have been sick for decades. My family has spent fortunes trying to cure me, but nothing works. Tai-Ho stared at her. But you seem so strong, so healthy. Appearances can be deceiving. She held up her hand. In the dim light, he could see thin black lines beneath her pale skin, spreading like cracks in ice. The disease moves slowly. I may have another century, maybe two, but eventually it will consume me. Is that why you saved me? Because my blood could cure you? Partly, she looked at him, but also because when you stumbled into that ballroom, terrified and confused, you looked at me like I was just a person, not a princess, not a vampire, not a monster, just a girl at a party who wanted to dance. She smiled sadly. I had forgotten what that felt like, to be seen as something other than a title. Tai-Ho reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, but she did not pull away. When this is over, he said, if we survive, I will find a way to help you. I promise. Yuna laughed quietly. You humans and your promises, always reaching for things beyond your grasp. Maybe, but we usually catch them anyway. Outside the window, the stars burned in silence. Somewhere in the darkness, hunters were closing in. Battles were coming. Blood would be spilled. But in that moment, on that small ship in the middle of nowhere, two unlikely allies held hands and watched the universe pass by. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The safe house was an old mining station on a dead moon. Its tunnels went deep underground, hidden from sensors and scanners. The people who lived there were not miners. They were rebels. Tai-Ho stood in a chamber carved from rock. facing a dozen vampires who looked nothing like the nobles he had seen at the wedding. These were thin, scarred, dressed in patched clothes. Their eyes held the same red glow, but there was something different in them. Hunger, not for blood, but for change. "So this is the soul-born," their leader said. Her name was Sumin, and she had been a servant in a noble house before the plague took her family. Now she led the largest rebel group in the Crimson Dominion. "He looks ordinary." "Most important people do," Yuna replied. She stood beside Tai-Ho, her presence commanding even in this simple room. "The question is not what he looks like. The question is whether you are willing to work with him." Sumin walked closer. She circled Tai-Ho slowly, examining him like a merchant examining goods. He stood still and let her look. "The nobles say you are a weapon," she said, "a tool to be used and discarded. They want your blood in bottles, sold to the highest bidder, while the rest of us die in the streets." "I am not a weapon," Tai-Ho said, "and I am not a tool. I am a person. Persons can be broken. Persons can be bought. Some can. I cannot." Sumin stopped in front of him. Her eyes searched his face for something. Lies, weakness, fear. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her. "The princess tells me you want to help us. Why? Your ancestors were hunted by our ancestors. You owe us nothing." This was the question Tai-Ho had asked himself 100 times during their journey. He still did not have a perfect answer, but he had something better. The truth. "When I was young, there was a famine on my colony. The crops failed and people were starving. A supply ship came, but the captain wanted to charge triple the normal price. Most families could not afford it." He paused, remembering. "My grandmother took everything we had, our savings, our tools, even her wedding ring, and bought as much food as she could. Then she gave it away. Not to our family, but to the families with children. She said that hungry children become angry adults, and angry adults destroy everything around them." Sumin tilted her head. "And what happened to your family?" "We went hungry that winter. My grandmother got sick and never fully recovered. She died 2 years later." Tai-Ho's voice was steady. "But those children survived. Some of them are doctors now, or teachers, or engineers. They built things that helped the whole colony." "Your grandmother sounds like a fool." "Maybe, but she taught me something important. Suffering spreads. When one person hurts, they hurt others. The only way to break the cycle is to help, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you." The room was silent. The rebels looked at each other, uncertain. Sumin stared at Tai-Ho for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a harsh sound, but not cruel. "A human philosopher. I have seen everything now." She turned to address her people. "The soul-born speaks like a naive child, but perhaps that is what we need. We have been cynical for too long." "Cynicism keeps you alive, but it does not change anything." She looked back at Tai-Ho. "I will work with you, human, but know this. If you betray us, if you sell us to the nobles, I will kill you myself. Your special blood will not save you." "I understand." "Good." Sumin gestured toward a tunnel. "Come, let me show you what we are fighting for." They walked through the mining station. Sumin led them past rooms filled with sick vampires, the hollow plague victims abandoned by the noble houses. Men, women, children, all showing the same black lines spreading under their skin. Some were unconscious, others moaned in pain. A few reached toward Tai-Ho with desperate hands. "These are the forgotten," Sumin said. "The lower castes, the servants, the workers. They built the empire with their hands, and now the empire lets them rot." "How many?" Tai-Ho asked, his voice tight. "Here? 300? Across the Dominion?" "Millions." Sumin's face was hard. "The nobles have treatments that can slow the disease. They cost more than most vampires earn in a lifetime. The rich survive. The poor die. That has always been the way." Gina walked beside Tai-Ho, her face pale. "This is horrible," she whispered. "This is reality," Sumin replied. "A reality the nobles do not want you to see." They reached a larger chamber. Here the rebels had set up a communication center, screens showing news feeds, maps marked with troop movements, encrypted messages scrolling across displays. We have been fighting for decades, Suman explained. Small attacks, sabotage, propaganda, but we have never had real power. The nobles have armies, weapons, technology. We have numbers and desperation. What would change that? Yuna asked. Hope. Suman turned to Taiho. If we can prove that a cure exists, that the soul-born blood can save our people, the lower castes will rise. Not just our group, but everyone. Workers, servants, soldiers who are tired of watching their families die. We could bring down the entire system. And replace it with what? Taiho asked. Something better. Something fair. Suman's eyes burned. A dominion where treatment is not based on wealth, where power is not inherited but earned, where humans and vampires can exist as equals, not masters and slaves. Taiho looked at Yuna. She had been quiet through most of the tour, her face unreadable. He knew this was difficult for her. These rebels wanted to destroy her family's power, her brother's throne, everything she had grown up with. What do you think? He asked her. Yuna was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft but certain. I have lived for 300 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched my family make choices that I am not proud of. She looked at the sick vampires in the beds, the desperate rebels in the tunnels. I used to believe that preserving power was the most important thing. Now I wonder if power that requires suffering is worth preserving at all. She turned to Suman. I cannot speak for the throne, but I can speak for myself. If Taiho chooses to help you, I will stand beside him. Suman nodded slowly. The princess of the Crimson Dominion, joining the rebellion. Your brother will be furious. My brother has been furious with me since we were children. One more reason will not matter. Taiho stepped forward. I have a condition. If we do this, if we make a cure, it goes to everyone, not just the rebels, not just your allies. Everyone who needs it, regardless of which side they are on. You would help our enemies? I would help sick people. The disease does not care about politics. Neither should the cure. Suman studied him again. Then she extended her hand. You are strange, soul-born. Strange and idealistic, and probably doomed. But perhaps that is exactly what this galaxy needs. Taiho shook her hand. Her grip was firm, her skin cold. So what happens now? Gina asked. Now we plan, Suman said. In 3 weeks, the Crimson Eclipse begins. Every noble house gathers on the homeworld for the sacred festival. The Emperor himself will be there, along with Lord Hyunwoo and the entire royal guard. You want to attack during the festival? I want to make a statement. Show the people that the nobles are not invincible. Show them that change is possible. Suman smiled grimly. And if we happen to cure a few hundred plague victims in front of the entire Dominion, so much the better. Taiho felt a chill run down his spine. 3 weeks. That was how long he had to master his powers, help create a cure, and prepare for a battle against the most powerful vampires in the galaxy. It seemed impossible. But then again, so did everything else that had happened since he stumbled into that ballroom. He looked at Yuna, at Gina, at the rebels around him. These were his people now, his allies, his friends. If they were going to do the impossible, they would do it together. Okay, he said, let us get to work. The vampire homeworld was called Noctis Prime. It was a planet of eternal twilight, orbiting a dim red star that cast everything in shades of crimson and shadow. The capital city stretched across a vast plateau, its towers reaching toward the dark sky like teeth. On the night of the Crimson Eclipse, the city blazed with lights. Taiho stood on a rooftop, watching the celebration below. Noble vampires filled the streets, wearing masks and flowing robes, dancing to music that echoed between the buildings. It was beautiful and terrible, like a dream that could turn into a nightmare at any moment. Are you ready? Yuna asked, appearing beside him. No, he admitted, but I do not think I ever will be. 3 weeks had passed since they joined the rebellion. In that time, Taiho had learned to control his power. Not perfectly, he still could not summon light without strong emotion, but enough to be useful. The rebel scientists had studied his blood and created a treatment that could cure the hollow plague. It was not elegant, but it worked. Now came the hardest part, using it. The plan was simple in concept, complicated in execution. Rebel forces would attack key points throughout the city, drawing attention away from the palace. Tai-Ho and Yuna would infiltrate the royal compound where the emperor lay dying. They would cure him publicly, proving to the entire Dominion that the soul-born blood was real and that the cure was possible. Then came the difficult question. What happened after? The emperor's guards have been doubled. Sumin's voice crackled through Tai-Ho's earpiece. Hyunwoo suspects something. Be careful. We will, Yuna replied. She looked at Tai-Ho. Stay close to me. No matter what happens, do not leave my side. They moved through the shadows, avoiding patrols, climbing walls, slipping through windows that Yuna somehow knew would be unguarded. The palace was massive, a fortress of black stone and red crystal. Tai-Ho had never felt so small. They reached the emperor's chambers without incident. 2 guards stood at the door, but Yuna handled them quickly, not killed, just unconscious. She pushed open the door, and they stepped inside. The room was vast and dark. The only light came from floating candles and the dim glow of medical equipment. In the center, on a bed that looked more like a throne, lay the Crimson Emperor. He was ancient. His skin was paper-thin, his eyes sunken, his body twisted by the plague. Black lines covered every visible inch of his flesh. He was barely alive, held together by machines and willpower. But when Yuna entered, his eyes opened. "Daughter," he whispered. His voice was like dry leaves rustling in wind. "You came home." "Father." Yuna knelt beside his bed. For a moment she looked like a child again, small and scared. "I brought help." The Emperor's gaze shifted to Tai-Ho. Despite his weakness, his eyes still held power. Ancient, knowing, terrible. "The Soulborn," he said. "I thought your kind was dead." "Almost." Tai-Ho stepped forward, holding a small vial of the cure. "I have something that can help you, if you will accept it." "And what do you want in return?" "A promise. If this works, you will make the cure available to everyone, rich and poor, noble and common. Every vampire who needs it." The Emperor laughed. It was a horrible sound, broken by coughs and wheezes. "You ask me to destroy the foundation of our society. Our power comes from controlling what others need. Your power comes from your people. If they die, your power dies with them." "He is right, Father," Yuna said. "The old ways are killing us. If we do not change, there will be nothing left to rule." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. His ancient eyes moved between his daughter and the human standing in his chambers. "You love him," he said to Yuna. It was not a question. Yuna did not answer, but she did not deny it either. The door exploded inward. Lord Hunwoo strode through the smoke, his black armor gleaming, his sword already drawn. Behind him came a dozen royal guards, their weapons raised. "I knew you would come here," he said. "I knew you would try to poison Father with human trickery." "It is not poison," Yuna stood, placing herself between Hyunwoo and Tai-Ho. "It is a cure. I have seen it work." "I do not care." Hyunwoo's face was twisted with rage. "You have betrayed your family, your blood, your throne. You brought a human into our sacred palace during the eclipse. For that alone, you deserve death." "Then come and take it." Brother and sister faced each other. The guards hesitated, uncertain. This was not a battle they had trained for. Hyunwoo attacked. His blade flashed, faster than Tai-Ho could follow. Yuna met him with her own sword. Where she had hidden it, Tai-Ho did not know. Metal rang against metal. They fought across the chamber, destroying furniture, shattering crystal, moving with speed and grace that no human could match. But Tai-Ho was not useless anymore. He closed his eyes and reached for the warmth in his chest. He thought of Gina, safe with the rebels, counting on him to succeed. He thought of Yuna, fighting her own brother to protect him. He thought of his grandmother, giving away everything to help strangers. Light exploded from his hands. It was not a small glow this time. It was a sun in miniature, blazing with golden fire, filling the room with brilliance that made the vampires scream. Hyunwoo stumbled back, his eyes burning. The guards fell, covering their faces. Yuna was hurt too. Tai-Ho could see her skin smoking. But she did not fall. She had prepared for this. She trusted him. "Stop!" Hyunwoo screamed. "You are killing us!" Tae-ho pulled the light back, dimming it to a bearable glow. He walked toward Hyunwoo, his palms still shining, his heart pounding with power he had never felt before. "I could kill you," he said quietly. "I could destroy everyone in this room with a thought. My ancestors did exactly that, and your ancestors hunted them for it." He knelt beside the fallen lord, letting the light fade completely. "But I am not my ancestors, and you do not have to be yours." Hyunwoo stared at him with hatred and fear and something else, something that might have been shame. "Why?" he asked. "Why spare me?" "Because killing you would not solve anything. It would just create more hate, more fear, more cycles of violence." Tae-ho stood. "Someone has to break the cycle. Today, that someone is me." He walked back to the Emperor's bed. The old vampire had watched the entire fight in silence, his ancient eyes missing nothing. "You could have destroyed my son," the Emperor said. "You chose not to. Why?" "I already told him. Suffering spreads. Mercy can spread too, if we let it." Tae-ho held out the vial again. "This is your choice, Emperor. You can reject the cure, keep your power, and watch your people die. Or you can accept help from a human and change everything." The Emperor looked at the vial. He looked at his son, still on the floor. He looked at his daughter, burned but standing. Then slowly he reached out and took the cure. "Give it to me," he said, "and may the gods forgive us all for what we have done." Tae-ho administered the treatment. It took effect within minutes, the black lines fading, color returning to the Emperor's skin, strength flowing back into his ancient body. When it was done, the Emperor stood for the first time in years. He walked to the window and looked out at his city, his empire, his people celebrating below. "Send a message to all channels," he said. "The soul-born cure is real. It will be distributed freely to all citizens, regardless of status. The old restrictions are ended." He turned to face Tae-ho. "You have changed everything, human. I hope you are prepared for what comes next." Tae-ho was not sure he was. But as he looked at Yuna, as he thought about all the vampires who would live because of what they had done, he knew he would face it anyway. That was what humans did. They survived. They helped. They kept going no matter what. 1 year later, Tae-ho sat in the cockpit of his old cargo ship, watching a planet grow larger in the viewport. It was not a special planet, just another colony world, another delivery stop on his endless route through the stars. But today felt different. Everything felt different now. The galaxy had changed since the night of the Crimson Eclipse. The Emperor had kept his promise. The cure spread across the Dominion like wildfire, healing millions who had been left to die. The Hollow Plague was not gone, but it was no longer a death sentence. For the first time in centuries, vampires had hope. Tae-ho's role in the cure was public knowledge. He was famous now, the human who saved an empire, the last soul born, the delivery man who danced with a princess and changed history. People wanted to write books about him, make films about him, put his face on stamps and murals. He said no to all of it. "You could be the most powerful human alive," Gina had told him once. "You could have wealth, influence, anything you want." "I have everything I want," he replied. "A ship, a job, and friends who do not treat me like a symbol." Gina had laughed and called him an idiot. But she understood. She always understood. The cargo ship docked at the colony station with a familiar thump. Tae-ho grabbed his delivery tablet and headed for the airlock. Today's cargo was medical supplies, vaccines for a local outbreak, nothing dramatic. The kind of work he had done his whole life. The kind of work he loved. He spent the morning making deliveries, chatting with dock workers, eating cheap noodles at a food stall, run by an old woman who reminded him of his grandmother. Normal things. Simple things. The kind of things that famous people were supposed to leave behind. Tae-ho refused to leave them behind. In the afternoon, he received a message on his personal communicator. The caller ID made him smile. "Are you busy?" Yuna's voice asked. "Just finished my last delivery. Why?" "I am in your system. Would you like company?" Tae-ho looked at his ship, at his empty cargo hold, at the stars waiting outside the viewport. "I always have room for you." Her ship appeared an hour later, a royal cruiser, elegant and powerful, completely out of place beside his battered cargo hauler. But when Yuna stepped onto his deck, She was not wearing royal clothes. She was dressed simply, practically, like any other traveler. Empress Yuna of the Crimson Dominion, Teho said, bowing dramatically. Welcome to my humble ship. Stop that. She pushed his shoulder lightly. You know I hate titles. I know. That is why I use them. She laughed, that real bright laugh he had first heard in the library on Velvet Moon. It still made his heart beat faster every time. They sat in the cockpit together, watching the stars. It had become their tradition over the past year. Whenever her duties allowed, Yuna would escape the palace and find him somewhere in the galaxy. They would talk for hours, or sit in comfortable silence, or play card games that Teho always lost. How is your brother? Teho asked. Still angry, still bitter, but he is trying. Yuna's voice was thoughtful. Father made him lead the reform committee. I think he hoped that giving Hyunwoo responsibility would help him understand why change was necessary. Is it working? Slowly. He still does not trust humans, but he no longer calls for your death at every council meeting. I consider that progress. Very encouraging. Yuna turned to look at him. Her red eyes were softer than they had been a year ago. The black lines were gone from her skin, cured by the same treatment she had helped create. I have news, she said. The Council has approved the Human Integration Act. Starting next month, humans will have full citizenship rights in the Dominion. They can own property, hold office, marry vampires if they choose. Teho raised an eyebrow. Marry vampires? It was a controversial addition. Yuna's cheeks colored slightly, a rare sight for a vampire. But I argued strongly for it. There was some debate, but eventually they agreed. I wonder why you cared so much about that particular clause. I cannot imagine. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, a comet streaked past, trailing blue fire. I have been thinking, Yuna said quietly. Dangerous habit. Quiet. She took his hand. Her fingers were still cold, but he had grown to love that coldness. I have been thinking about the future. My future. Our future. Teho's heart beat faster. And what have you concluded? I have concluded that I am 301 years old, and I have never been happy. Not truly happy. Not until I met a clumsy delivery man who stumbled into my cousin's wedding and looked at me like I was just a person. She turned to face him fully. I have also concluded that I do not want to spend the next 300 years without him. Teho was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his life, the lonely years, the hard work, the dreams he had given up. He thought about everything that had happened since that night on the Velvet Moon. I am not a prince, he said finally. I am not rich or powerful or immortal. I am just a delivery man with a second-hand ship and a talent for getting into trouble. I know. Your people might not accept me. Your brother definitely will not accept me. There will be challenges and obstacles and probably assassination attempts. I know that too. Teho smiled. Just making sure you understand what you are getting into. He leaned forward and kissed her. Her lips were cool, but the sensation was warm, like coming home after a long journey through the cold. Is that a yes? Yuna asked when they separated. That is a definitely. She laughed again, and he laughed with her, and for a moment the whole universe seemed to shrink down to this small cockpit, this old ship, these two people who should never have met but could not imagine being apart. Later, much later, they received a transmission from Gina. I heard the news. Her voice crackled through the speaker. The famous hero is marrying the vampire empress. The feeds are going crazy. How did you hear already? Teho asked. We only decided an hour ago. Sumin told me. She has spies everywhere. Congratulations, by the way. You two are disgusting, and I am very happy for you. Yuna took the communicator. Will you be at the ceremony? Would not miss it. Someone needs to make sure Tai Ho does not trip over his own feet walking down the aisle. I tripped one time, Teho protested. It was memorable. The transmission ended with Gina's laughter echoing in the cockpit. Teho shook his head, but he was smiling. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance. Somewhere in the galaxy, vampires and humans were learning to live together for the first time. Somewhere, children were growing up in a universe where the old hatreds were fading into history. Somewhere, the future was being written by ordinary people, making extraordinary choices. Yuna leaned against Taiho's shoulder. You could have ruled beside me, she said. You still could. The people would accept you as emperor. I know. He wrapped an arm around her. But I am happy where I am, delivering packages, seeing the galaxy, coming home to you when the route allows. That is very romantic. I have my moments, she smiled. You really are strange, Kang Taiho. So I have been told. They sat together as the ship drifted through space, two people from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. The darkness outside was vast and cold, but inside there was warmth. There was hope. There was love. And in the end, that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. The delivery man and the vampire empress watched the stars together, and the universe for once seemed kind. Not because it had changed, but because they had.